From the production studios of Epic Productions in Red Bank, New Jersey at Epic Financial Strategies, we are Infinity X, giving a stage and microphone to human excellence in the endless pursuit of creating frictionless, infinite sales opportunities. And tonight is absolutely no different. We are joined this evening by Lance Essihos. Lance, are you there with us, sir? What's up, Lance? How you doing?
How you guys
buddy?
doing?
Doing terrific. How are you tonight?
Really good. Really good.
Excellent.
Thanks.
And as always, I am joined by my partner and the CEO of Epic Financial Strategies, Rob Gill. Rob, how are you tonight?
What's up, Dave? How you doing?
I'm great, brother. How are you?
Hey, Lance. Nice to meet you. Happy Trajectory Tuesday, my friend.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me. Great to meet you guys.
You too, brother.
A big component of our platform is edification of human excellence, right? And you're obviously doing things at a super high level in the podcasting space. You got a wonderful social media presence, but to know where you are and where you're going, you have to know where you came from. So where did it all start for you? Where are you from? And what was it like for you growing up?
Yeah, I was born and raised in a city called Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Very cold city. It's a very blue collar city. I grew up playing hockey. That was pretty much my passion. When I was 11, we moved out of there. We moved to the West Coast, and that's where things got super challenging in my life. And throughout my teenage years, there was a lot of chaos. My dad got remarried to a woman with 4 kids, which was really challenging. I went through some times of getting bullied and went into many years of going through a lot of pain and a lot of drowning my sorrows. There was a lot of darkness. Let's just say that. So I got into the bar and restaurant industry for many years as a way to escape from all of that. And it just led me down a path of self-destruction. And, I ended up losing my brother and my dad while I was living in Australia. There's a lot of like in-betweens there, but I'm just kind of giving you a rundown. And yeah, I went through a lot of adversity. So the reason I started my show was because I went through so many different challenges and struggles that we all go through. And, it really led me to wanting to create my podcast, University of Adversity, so that I could be the voice and help people move through the struggles, the adversity that they're going through in their own life. So we've been doing that for 3 years now. I've interviewed over 350 people, from all different walks of life, New York Times bestselling authors, pro athletes, celebrities, spiritual masters, you name it. It's been a wild ride, but it's really not only just the podcast itself, but it's been a big spiritual, personal growth tool for me that has really helped me get through a lot of the shit that I've had to get through and go through. So through conversation, through story, it's been able to not only help me, but be able to help a lot of people. So that's kind of like the brief little bit of a story about my background, and how it all got started.
Hey, Lance, listen, thank you so much for, giving us the 10,000, 5,000, 1,000 foot view. And, when I hear about you interviewing 350 people, what comes to my mind is growth and contribution, because once you start interviewing at that level, you begin to learn so much about yourself and about what other people do that creates success. And I can only imagine how it's been able to kind of put you on a different track by being able to not only interview people, but getting their message out there. Pretty cool. When you share about your struggles, I got the impression you meant with either drugs or alcohol. Am I misunderstanding that? Did that take place?
Yeah, no, you nailed it. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. I myself haven't had a drink since July 1996.
Good for you.
I got shot at in May of 1995. The person I was with in the car was shot 3 times. He survived. But I was on a weekend entertainment, and it was amazing because I did bring him to the hospital anonymously, by the way, but I did bring him. He did live, but I still drank and drug for a whole year after that, so I was fortunate enough to live 2 lives, one of self-destruction and the other one of, being sober and, living a life of hope and then become an example of. But even in that sobriety, my journey also has had some of its beautiful challenges that have led to different things, including how we are here today. But when I hear about folks that, were in situations that I may have been in, and then having impact on the world that you're talking about, I think it's amazing. And, for us here at Epic, we have tremendous partners around us that have really helped elevate us, and we've modeled ourselves with folks that have been there, done that. The thing that stands out the most as I just sit here talking to you and you sharing that is, Dave said that you've created an unbelievable podcast, right? From a congruency standpoint, we have really developed a social media track, but we don't have any experience in podcasts. As a matter of fact, we just sent out our first podcast last week. So, I love to be able to honor your journey and use this as an opportunity for whoever's listening, for them to be able to benefit from your knowledge on what is a podcast, why it's so important, and maybe how it's impacted your life now and career, and then what it looks like going forward, maybe the next 3 or 5 years.
Yeah, it's a great question. I just want to acknowledge, congratulations for the sobriety, because I mean it's not easy, and to live those two lives, it's
Yep.
it's a blessing. So that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, podcasting is so powerful in so many ways, but what I underestimated was what it would actually do for me as a personal growth tool. Like, aside from everything, this has been the number one personal growth tool I could have possibly imagined.
Wow.
It's when you're having these high level conversations and you're having to get out of your comfort zone to go and talk to somebody that has achieved a lot more than you put on a pedestal, like the Grant Cardones of the world or Jack Canfields. It was tough because I wasn't there mentally. It was like, how am I able to speak to this guy? And it challenged me every time because I had to step into this power. I had no other choice. It was like, I have to show up. And every time you do that, you just get better and you build this muscle, right? Yes. So you do that over time and you start to have these conversations and you start to become these people. You start to become that high level human because you're having so many of those conversations, and that was a huge factor. And that's what people, they underestimate. The second thing is the amount of relationships that you get to cultivate, these like real relationships that you get to have. It's very rare that you get to have somebody's time and you can just have a conversation and ask them without having to like pay them. Or I know some people charge for podcasting, but the majority of it for the longest time has been, free. People want to give their time and add value. And that's been the beautiful thing about it, is that you get to cultivate these amazing relationships and you're just planting seeds, right? You don't know where that's going to lead, but you plant that seed, you have a great conversation. And then what happens? You leave them feeling elevated, feeling connected. And then they want to introduce you to somebody else, vice versa. Right? So it becomes this really beautiful thing of the relationships. And in business and life, like, it's your quality of life and business depends on your relationships that you build. Right? And to just go and give without expectation, especially with the podcast, that's been always my thing for the longest while, is I didn't have a lot to offer other than just giving what I could give from the conversation. And I just wanted to give without thinking, oh, what is this going to do? Is this going to make me money? I owed it to the world to just give value for a while. Cause look, I was new. I was getting out of the bar world. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And this is my gift. I worked in the bar industry for many years. I was able to connect with people and share stories. So that's what I did. So that has been super powerful also. But what it also does is that it helps you become an authority figure in your space, because you're seen. The more you're seen, the more you look like an expert. You're talking to people about things and they start to see you more and more, then you become that also. And while you're doing that, you're building trust and authority. When you have a conversation and you talk about things that are close to your heart, and you're vulnerable. And I'm blessed because I have a podcast where we just let it all out, so people can get to know me very quickly. You know, some podcasts you may not go as deep, but I always encourage people, like, really, really share your truth, like really be real, because that's what people care about. People want to see the human behind the business, behind the success. So, or just behind what they're doing. Like they don't want, people are sick of the games, the BS. People just want to know the human. They want to know the story, and that creates that connection, that trust, right? So then they want to naturally learn more about what you're doing. And it's powerful because, we live in a world where there's just so much crap on social media, and there's so much people getting misled. And I think a podcast is somewhere where you can really show who you are. And it's helped me because people can really learn about who I am, and, potentially weed out the people that don't believe what I believe and don't align with me. That's great. I don't have to act. I don't have to prove anything to you. You can just go listen to my hundreds of interviews. Like, do you like who I am? Great. If not, well, enjoy. Like, it doesn't matter. So that's another thing that's super powerful for your personal brand. It's like you're the face of your brand, which is, essentially the face of your company. And that's why it's so powerful too. It's the number one personal brand accelerator, in my opinion, also. And on top of that, yeah.
Can I ask you a quick question? So
of course.
Thank you for sharing that. When
Yeah.
it comes to the podcast,
yeah.
and obviously whenever you launch a new pod, or whenever you have a next episode, I'm sure there's a bunch of people that are in your community, right? And that listen to it. From that, because I heard what you're saying, you want to give back to the world, but from that now, what does it look like in your, let's call it your business model? How does that work in the way your business is structured through the podcast?
Yeah, great question.
We're infants. We're 2 years old, and we don't know anything about this side.
Yeah. Well, so what I've done is first of all, from University of Adversity, I was able to get a book opportunity. So I'm writing a book called Mastering Adversity.
Wow.
So they saw what I was doing. I, created that, got a crowdfunding campaign that came out of it. We raised the money, and now I got the book deal. We had a summit come out of it. We had a bunch of speakers come from the summit. So that is other things. But so going back, I realized that when I started a podcast that I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So I hired somebody to help me.
Got it.
And I realized that if I didn't want to edit, I didn't want to learn any of it personally at the time. I was just like, I just need to do this. I just need to do it. I don't care. Let's just make it work. So I hired a team, and then I realized, what if I create this, and kind of, because I hired a couple different people to kind of piece it together. And I was like, well, what if I created a company that kind of did like a full done for you podcast where you could just show up and record? And that's what I did. I created my company called Mic Up Podcast Productions. And, essentially the goal is to have the person, who doesn't have a lot of presence. You may be super successful, but nobody knows who you are. That we would use the podcast as a tool to amplify your personal brand, but not give you more work to do. Just want to be able to allow our clients to show up, record, and then we take care of the rest, right? And then we put together all the micro content and all that, and then it goes all over the place, which is another thing. It's a content engine. It's an evergreen content engine. So that's what I've done. I've also working on, a podcast course. I've created a course called the Warrior Embodiment, where it's like a personal development course. So there's a lot of things we're working on right now, as far as like building the University of Adversity brand, and we're building an academy, and then also, my production company. So all of that has come from the podcast. None of that was there before. So, and now I just use my own products in my own company as sponsors of my own show, because essentially it's a client of my show. of my company. So that's how I've done it. I haven't really used, I've had a couple sponsors here and there plug in their products, but I haven't really done that. Like, I have to have something that really aligns with me. I'm not just going to do something just to get it, like, you know, I don't know, some just small dollars. I'd rather just, you know, I don't know. I haven't done the sponsorship ad. Not to say it's bad. That's a great way. But for me, it just hasn't fallen into place yet. So
Got it.
hope that answers your question.
Definitely. I just had a thought of my team here in the office that does our videos and social media, that, you know, we should create a business where we have people come in here and film their own podcasts, and that could be a revenue stream for them, just because.
Absolutely.
Didn't even think of that, but that's how my brain works. Did you want to ask?
Yeah, I did, Lance. And by the way, congratulations on your success, right? We are Infinity X, folks, giving stages and microphones to human excellence. And if you do have a question for Lance, please put it into the chat. But I'm just so impressed with, you know, the journey, Lance. But you know, success in a podcast doesn't just knock on your front door, right? So when you were exiting out of the restaurant or the bar and entertainment scene, and had the original idea for, was podcasting your original idea in terms of impact, or like, what was that aha moment like, you know, what take me through the mindset back then?
Well, I had got into doing network marketing and direct selling. Okay. And I started, so what we would do is we'd sell an offer up front, and then we'd sell a high ticket in the back end of this. So the idea was Facebook ads.
Okay.
So back in 2017, 2018 as well, you know, the idea was to share your story. The deeper your story, the more people want to engage. Back then it was different world on Facebook ads. So like, you want these long form stories. And I started to think, I was like, wait a minute, I got a pretty wild, crazy story, but I feel like this isn't doing it justice. All these other people are, you know, I had some big lead. I had a couple ads really take off, but nothing came out of it. So initially I was like, well, what if I could share my story and others on a podcast? Because really, I'm going to separate myself from the rest of the pack. Because in network marketing and online marketing, a lot of people are selling the same, but the difference is that personal brand. So I was like, I could set myself apart by doing this. So I was like, this is going to be good, because then people can learn about me. Because Facebook ads and all that, I just couldn't, it wasn't doing it for me, but I wanted to share my story. So that was the first time where I really was like, I gotta do this. Because I filmed videos and I was like, there's something bigger. And podcasting was something that, like, I've been listening to Joe Rogan since the beginning, you know, since 2011, I think I started listening to him.
Godfather,
and
you know,
I've learned so much. Like, I've watched so many, and I've learned so many other people and learned so many resources from that show. There was other shows too that I really loved. And I was like, this is great. I love the idea of radio. I always loved it. And I was like, I got to start a show. And when I had the opportunity, when it came up, I was like, this feels really good.
Yeah.
You know, it was a really big intuition. It was like a real pull. I was like, I got to do this. And I didn't know, like I said, I just knew I had to do it. And the people just fell into place. It was wild. And it just people started sending me good people. I wasn't even really going after that many. I was getting sent these people, and I was like, wow, this is nuts.
So you got ahead of the market. So for yourself, from a timing perspective, you entered into podcasting at a point where it was really, really starting to rise in relevancy. Is that right?
Yeah, but at the time, everybody said the same thing. There's too many. And they're saying that now. And be honest with you, like, there is not that many active podcasts on the big scale of things. I think there's probably like 2 million, or not even. And like, compared to YouTube channels, like, there's so much room for your voice. Like, somebody needs your voice, your message. The problem is people are looking for this quick fix overnight. Like, everything's got to be successful right away. And it's just not the case. Unless you have like a massive audience where you're a celebrity or pro athlete already. I mean, it's people you gotta show up consistently for a while. Right. And it takes time. So I think people they don't want to do it because they already doubt themselves before they start. And
Right.
I always
They
say
don't
that
get the
to
immediate dopamine hit, right? And when they
Yeah.
don't get the immediate dopamine hit, then they abandon it and say it doesn't work, right? Same
But
thing
you
with
got-
network
yeah.
marketing. It's the exact same thing, right?
Totally. Totally. And you got to get super clear with your why. Why are you doing this? Who is it for? Where are you sending them? Like, what is this about? Like, really get that completely solid first, because if you don't, when, you know, shit hits the fan, sorry if I can't swear.
No, fucking curse, please.
When shit hits the fan, usually if your why isn't strong enough, that's going to be the thing that hits, because you don't see a lot of like ROI with podcasting right in the beginning. If you're just starting, that's the thing. So unless you have a goal, like I'm going to do this for at least 3 to 5 years, I say like, don't bother. Like, you know, just be willing. This is a thing that's going to show up. It's a growing thing. You just got to show up consistently. Make sure you don't underestimate the work. It's not hard work, but it's tedious and it takes a while to do if you want to do it yourself. So that's why people fail. But podcasting it's powerful. And I think I just saw that vision, that it's what helped me through a lot. So I thought, well, you know, I know how to speak. I know how to talk to people. I want to do it too. So yeah, maybe I got in before a certain period, but I think if it's you have, everybody has an audience, and it's just a matter of, you know, tapping in and getting clear on who that is.
What was your analytics on, you know, monetizing podcasting, right? When you were entering into it, did you see it becoming something that was going to be a real revenue driver for you? Or did you think that the byproduct of your podcast was going to be other, you know, call it financial opportunities or business investment opportunities?
Man, I thought, oh, this is going to be Joe Rogan overnight.
Yeah.
I was like, what is there, 5 people listening? How dare you guys?
I know.
How dare you not listen?
Don't you know how important I am? Right.
I put a post on social media. Why isn't 5,000 people listening to me right now?
We
like,
call
what
that
is going on?
Post and pray, right?
Well, that was it. And, you know, it really was a shock to the ego at first, but, you know, I didn't really understand it. To be honest, I have learned to not get in my own head. I don't listen to too many podcasts. I just stay in, just because I'm the kind of person that if I start to listen to a bunch of different things, I start to question myself.
Sure.
I feel like I listen to enough to know like what I want. But like in the beginning, I was just like, look, I felt in the beginning, if I start to watch these numbers and really pay attention to all of like, can I monetize this? I was like, it's just going to throw me off. I wanted to do it and not have I just wanted to do it without any thought of anything.
Yeah.
That was initially, I was like, yeah, I think this will help me, but I didn't know how. I just knew that I liked talking to people. I liked what it was doing for me. I liked how I felt after a conversation. And yeah, I mean, obviously there was a time I was like, man, I want to make a lot of money with this. But then I started to realize, okay, it's patience. You just gotta keep going. There's a lot of people that have dropped off that were way ahead of me. And yeah, man, it's just.
And podcasting is measured from from a standpoint of subscribership. Is that how it monetizes, Lance? I am also a little bit of a virgin in that space.
When it comes to like sponsorships, I'm not sure what it is, but there's a certain amount of like downloads you have to get like a small amount of revenue.
Yeah,
so to get like certain sponsors, you got to have like, you know, tons of like millions of hundreds of thousands of downloads.
That's what. Okay.
And you know, for a while there's a lot of BS going on with downloads. There's people buying downloads. There's a lot of shady shit going on that there is with social media, and that there's ways, and like, I don't know who is doing it or whatever, but there's all that kind of stuff. So you're dealing with people that do that and you're dealing with people that don't. So it's like, I don't know. You know, you don't know what's true sometimes, but the reality of it is that the more downloads you get, the more listens, the more the ad dollars get spent. But there's other ways, like I said, to monetize where, you know, other people can advertise your show. You can do a little swap. You know, the main thing is like, you just want to get them on your email list, right? And then you can get them, once you got them on your email list, then you can start your offers. The podcast is the top of the funnel, right?
Mhm.
Like ungated content like social media posts and podcasting, gets them in the door, right?
Yep.
Free ungated. And then there's free gated where you get their email address and then, you can start the offers. So I think podcasting is a great way to kind of get them in the door and to start the process.
So Lance, I have a statement that I'd like to make, which is going to lead into the question that I have for you.
Yeah.
Because we have built we have multiple partnerships with really, really high level influencers, right? That we have developed. What's interesting about financial services in particular, I don't know if you have too much experience in our space, but what's interesting about financial services is that it's multifunctional and really kind of merges well with other people that are centers of influence for their communities, right? And so we have influencers that are in the real estate space, and we have influencers that are in other spaces where the products and services that we offer are, make sense and are a good fit for, for their communities, right? And it was through that exposures that we started to launch. We launched last year and are still continuing to build out our YouTube channel. And we've grown to about anywhere between 1,500 to 1,600 subscribers now at this point, which we're super proud of, because growing a YouTube presence is not the easiest thing in the world to do, right? But our focal point has always been centered around education and not necessarily the dollar signs, the dollar signs attached to it, right? That's where we wanted to consistently try to be authentic, right? Is to give, non-revenue, I'm not going to say non-revenue generating, but we want to give content where if revenue gets generated from it, it's a byproduct of it, right? But we want to give that world-class information and knowledge to help people to avoid financial pitfalls, right? And from that's a big part of our why when it comes to branding who we are in that space. With your podcast, right? Has your why remained consistent, or has it changed? That's question number one. And then question number two is, do you see when you're trying to build a brand that it could be easy to abandon your why to try to get as much exposure driven, and maybe you're having conversations with people that don't necessarily align with you as well? And what do you do to stay authentic in your space?
Those are great questions. I mean, I think my why has always been the same. I truly seek fulfillment in life. And the only way I get that is by making impact and helping people. Like, I've done a lot of the jobs. I've done a lot of that stuff. Party, got girls, got the, cars, all vehicles, that kind of thing. And like, that was never the thing. But what really gave me fulfillment, which transfers into now, was like when I gave somebody a great experience, when they like really were like, I helped them have a better day. I elevated them. So now that has transferred into this, where like, I want to inspire, I love to inspire 1 billion people to take action in their life, to be the bridge in their personal development journey, to actually take a step forward and make a change. And, that's really it, is to be able to just impact people, to actually take the step and make change. So with the podcast and the book, it's personal development. It's helping people, navigate adversity, change their perspective on it. And with the podcast, my podcast agency, it's about the same thing. It's about helping people amplify their message to the world without having to get caught up in the bullshit. Yeah. Right. Like, so it's the same thing. Like, I want to help impact as many people as I can. And I want to help our clients impact as many people. Because if I'm not making a difference, I don't ever feel fulfilled, like ever. It's always been like that. I couldn't just do something that doesn't make impact some sort of way. So that was the answer to your why question. And how do I stay? Yeah, there's a lot of distractions. There's a lot of ways to get out of alignment. But I mean, I look at this, I always look at like the long term. This is just, the year 3, we're just getting started. I just stayed true. I asked myself, to answer your question, I really have a really deep connection to my intuition. I asked myself, does this feel true to me, or is this someone else's story? Like, am I actually in truth, or is this a bullshit story I'm listening to or doing because of them?
Yeah.
And I really get clear with that, because it's a fine line to get caught up in doing things because other people are doing them, or comparing yourselves to others and all the nonsense that comes on social media. So I try and stay as true and as centered as I can. And that helps from doing my, my daily practices, meditation, journaling. Connecting to myself allows me to stay in my truth the best I can. Right. So I hope that answers your question, because it really comes down to my own habits and my disciplines that allow me to really remember why I'm doing this and to stay true to myself and the mission.
It does. And it did answer the question. It also opened up a number of new questions I'm going to be asking you in a moment, Lance. But we are Infinity X, giving a stage and microphone to human excellence. We're joined by Lance Essihos this evening. Lance, the name of the podcast one more time?
University of Adversity.
The University of Adversity podcast. Where can they find that?
Everywhere. Everywhere you listen to podcasts, Apple, Spotify, YouTube. We're working on growing our YouTube as well. So I hear you. We just started recently. So yeah, it's everywhere you listen to podcasts and YouTube.
Excellent. And the name of the book is going to be?
Mastering Adversity.
And your website?
LanceEssihos.com.
LanceEssihos.com. Folks, if you have a question for Lance, please put it in the chat. I will get to it at a future point. So Lance, in terms of intentionality, right? Because it sounds to me like your podcast, which I am a recent subscriber to, by the way, brother, and I'm really excited to continue to dissect. You're welcome, man. And I'm excited to continue to merge with you and learn more about what you're up to, because I love it. But in terms of intentional outcomes, right? One of the things that I know in our consultations with our clients is that our intentional outcome through integrity is that people's personal financial circumstances or businesses' financial circumstances are impacted positively, and that they have a clear, concise, what we call financial freedom roadmap, right? Whether that's an individual that is able to walk away from their 9-to-5 and have residualized incomes, or a business that grows and then ultimately they're able to sell it, right? In your space, is there, what are the types of intentional outcomes that you look at when you're inviting somebody onto your podcast? When you look at your audience, right? Do you do those analytics and say, okay, if I bring Joe Schmo onto my podcast, what's my intentional outcome for my people? Because it's my clients first, last, and always.
Oh, it's a great question. And you know what? If I could do it again, go back, I would probably be more intentional. I apologize. It's getting dark, so I want to have this. I'm trying to keep this light.
No problem.
Light. Sorry.
No, it's all good, man. I can see it just fine.
Yeah, it's something that it's a great question, and I would highly recommend people do. But I just was like, you know what? I just want to interview great people. Could I had like more intention around where's this, whatever. I was just like, build relationships, cultivate good relationships. That's it. I know that it'll all, and we had a summit come out of it. And but it's a great question. And I think people should really think about that more. But coming from a personal development angle, it's more so a great story, that somebody could take away. And, but yeah, I mean, I think strategy with that, especially say you have an entrepreneurial podcast or whatever, like it's a lot more important to do that from the get-go. So highly recommend it.
Could I ask you about the summit? Talk to me a little bit more around what the planning was like, the speakers that you identified. Talk a little bit about, and then also, do you plan on doing additional summits?
Yeah. So we did the University of Adversity Summit, and it was crazy. I think I interviewed 30 people in 3 days.
Oh, wow.
It was like, it was like a bunch of 30-minute interviews. And then I had a panel. So I'd have social adversity, physical adversity, mental adversity, financial adversity, spiritual adversity.
Mm.
And there was 2 panels a day where I'd have like 3 or 4 people on, and I would just facilitate conversation. Super powerful, super powerful. And that was that. So it went on for about, 6 to 8 hours each day. It was draining, but it was like one of the most, fulfilling experiences, because I had some amazing people on, and yeah, it was just super powerful. It's a lot of planning. There's a lot of work. It definitely takes some resources, but yeah, it was part of my book launch campaign, part of like one of the offers that we offered the crowdfunding, the people when they bought books, they got a ticket to the summit. So it was a lot of work, but it was amazing.
Folks, this is Lance Essihos, the University of Adversity podcast, right?
Yeah.
At lanceessihos.com. If you have a question for Lance, please put it into the chat. Lance, do you see yourself moving into live events?
Yes, absolutely. One of my things, I want to speak on stages. That's like something that is definitely next for me, something that I want to create. It just, with the state of the world, I mean, there hasn't been the opportunity, but definitely, man, definitely.
And if given the opportunity, let's say today is the first day that you're going to speak on a stage, and let's say that, well, first of all, who would the ideal avatar be for you to speak on their stage?
It would depend on who I'm talking to, because, right, like if I'm talking about podcasting, that's one, but that's not necessarily the same avatar as I would talk about if we were talking about adversity. It could be one, it really depends, right? I think somebody that I would want to listening to the audience is, if I was talking about, my podcast or my book, would be somebody that is struggling with in their life and they need to make a change, whether it's their job or whether they're going through hard things, they lost somebody, or they're just feeling like a deeper knowing that they want to do something different. Yeah. I think I could help them realize that and help them work through that, through the adversity. And then, somebody that's the podcasting world, I could help them with however that looks and help them, launch and especially how to interview, how to have conversations. It really depends. And I love that question because it makes me think, because I'm like, yeah, well, how, so they're both combined, but they're both different. Right.
Yeah. And what are the next 5 years of the world of Lance Essihos look like? Like, okay, so we're talking about live event, but, as you continue to scale upward, what does that look like? What does that look like for you?
Sorry, that's worse.
No, it's okay.
Is that better? Sorry.
Yep.
So I don't have a proper life. I'm traveling. I'm in Mexico. So I sold all my stuff, moved down here. So I'm like still figuring it out. That's how it is, folks. You can have a podcast anywhere.
That's right. Travel and podcast.
3 to 5 years. Yeah. I want to, the University of Adversity Academy, I want to have with a lot of resources, tools, speakers, all kind of, I want to have a community where I do events, I do retreats, all of that, and the best resources for overcoming adversity in the world. And also my company, Mike Up, I want to build a massive community of podcasters and world changers that want to share resources and grow through their shows and networking and, make an impact. So those are the things I really want to grow. And I'm going to have a New York Times bestselling book. What can I say?
Oof. Look at that, Lance.
Put it out there.
Hell yeah, man! You got to put it out to the universe, or else it's never going to come true.
Till I was like, oh, I should hold back. I shouldn't say that. I'm like,
no, hell no, absolutely. Listen, if it ends up, if it doesn't end up in the Times, but it's Amazon bestseller, who cares, right?
Hey, exactly.
This is Lance Essihos, lanceessihos.com, world-class podcaster and somebody that I certainly see in my future. Lance, if you could leave a parting shot for our audience, right? And for the folks that are going to catch us on weareinfinityx.com, replay available on weareinfinityx.com, as well as We Are Infinity X YouTube. If you could leave a parting shot in terms of what you're doing to position as you go into 2022 and what you think people who are in your space or in your verticals need to be prepared for as we go into 22, what would that be?
Yeah, I think people just need to really ask themselves, who they want to be, because depending on what side you're on or whatever your beliefs are, I invite people to really to get clear on what's true to you. Like I said before, are you living in truth or are you living someone else's story? What's true to you? And man, we need resilience. We need people to step into their power, man. We need people to be brave and courageous and do the thing, not just what's going on in the world, but everyday life, just really develop that resilience muscle and develop the courage, because the world needs you now. If anybody needs to step up into their power, it's now. So really, really sit with that. And, a good practice is just journaling and asking these questions, like, how do I want to show up? How, what am I going to do to show up there? Like what is true to me, and really getting clear on that. And, really also focusing on gratitude. Gratitude is a massively important practice that you can take into your life to really focus on what you have versus what you don't. And when you do that, your world will change. So those are some recommendations for 2022. It's a crazy world out there, but the world needs you, and they need you to step into your power and your truth.
Incredible, Lance. I can't thank you enough for sharing our stage tonight. Your message is one of pure power. University of Diversity, LanceEssihos.com, weareinfinityx.com. You're driving truth, and you're creating, you're really impacting the world. I really, really, really have a lot of respect for what you're doing, brother, and I see you in my future. I think that listen, man, I think there's a lot of things I think there's a lot of things that we could co-create on. So I'm excited to explore that further.
Absolutely.
So folks, listen, this is Lance Essihos. We are Infinity X, giving stage and microphone to human excellence. And I want to thank you, Lance, for really, really dropping first-class knowledge on not only podcasting, but self-mastery to everybody that's been with us tonight.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. This is great. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Lance. Appreciate it. Folks, thank you so very much. We will catch you next Tuesday on another episode of We Are Infinity X. And Lance, I'll be in touch with you, brother. I look forward to it.
Sounds good. Thanks so much, guys.
You got it. Have a wonderful night, everybody.
You too.